We have to make it harder for people to be able to purchase weapons. We have people now who are on terrorist watch lists who can purchase a weapon.
I have no issue with more extensive background checks. I have no issue with slowing down purchases for people that show all the basic warning signs.
We're going to make school safety the top priority. We're also going to work with the Congress and leaders around the country to more effectively give law enforcement tools to deal with people suffering with dangerous mental illness.
Political leaders weigh in the wake of 17 students being gunned down in Parkland, Florida, in that latest school shooting, one of the worst that we have seen in this country. Let's bring in our panel now to talk about where we go from here. Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics co-founder and publisher, and Guerin political correspondent at The Washington Post, and Molly Hemingway, the senior editor at The Federalist. So we have now Republicans saying something needs to change. We need to do something in the wake of this. But we heard similar language after the Las Vegas shooting, in which Republicans seem to support this idea of banning these bump stocks. So, and are we getting close to critical mass here, that something will happen, or will it be talked about and then, like we've seen in the past, it will fade away?
Certainly history suggests that there'll be a moment here like there was with bump stocks, and then it will go away. That said, I think this really does feel like there's a different current in the water. And I think we see evidence that President Trump feels that there's something different about this time, too. The main difference to me, I think, is these kids. It is really hard to look away and really hard to ignore 17, 18-year-olds who are blaming adults, blaming the president, blaming the political system, blaming both parties for not doing enough. And if that level of action and political engagement continues, it's going to be hard for everyone to look away.
Tom, can these students go up against the entrenched beliefs on both sides of the aisle here in Washington?
Well, they can. I think, as Ann said, they're pretty effective communicators for their cause. The problem is that with these incidents, we always see, in hindsight, what we should have seen in foresight. And you can go back. Interesting fact, John. The last 3 mass shootings in Florida, Omar Mateen Pulse nightclub, June 2016, Fort Lauderdale airport shooting in January 2017, and this one. All 3 perpetrators were on the radar of the FBI. In fact, the one who shot up the Fort Worth airport went into the FBI office and said that he was being mind controlled by the CIA. Said all these crazy things, and still managed to get a gun, go down there and do this. So the FBI, I think, really did drop the ball, not just in this incident, but in others. And that's part of the problem. We have the dots. They're all there. We're just not able to connect them.
Molly, one of the big questions is where does President Trump come down on all of this, and what is the appropriate role that he should take on? Let's listen to what the Ohio Governor John Kasich said he thinks the president should do.
We need leadership out of the executive. This is a great opportunity for common sense steps that can be taken, just in the area of background checks. Of course, the president can lead on this and should lead on this.
So the president supports enhanced background checks, but really what he's supporting is to enforce the laws that are already in the books, to make sure that federal governments in the states report to this NICS criminal background check database, which they're not doing now. So how much leadership are we going to see out of the president?
Well, people do seem to want government action at times like this. And if they do care about government action, there are all these opportunities, as Tom pointed out with the Florida examples. But also, this is the 3rd shooting I can think of where there was specific government failure. In the Charleston church shooting, the Texas church shooting, there was failure to put people on the lists that would make it so that they would be caught during a background check. Here you had multiple people giving specific, credible assessments that this guy was going to do exactly what he did. Rather than put new laws on the books that are not followed, I think that a great thing for the government to do would actually be to make sure that the laws that are on the books, the guidance that is on the books, is faithfully executed, rather than have another thing that isn't followed.
I mean, it seems like a simple thing to just, here's the law, here's what the law stipulates. Everybody, let's get together and make sure that we are faithfully adhering to the laws, and we're sharing all of this information.
Well, sure. I mean,
it seems like a no-brainer to me.
The NICS system does have one soft spot, which is that states are not compelled to turn over the information. And what the Cornyn-Murphy bill would do is add incentives and encouragement to states to do that, so that you would have a better collection of information. But I mean, in this particular instance, if the FBI had followed up, if a number of other potential fail-safes, which are not actually a law, had been in place, this guy might have been stopped. But there is one law that would have prevented at least him doing exactly what he ended up carrying out, which is an assault weapon ban. He was able to legally buy an AR-15, which would not have been the case 15 years ago. And so, I mean, that is a high hurdle for Congress to consider taking up the assault weapons ban again, but certainly you're going to hear calls for it.
So the FBI, as you pointed out, Tom, is being called out for missing a very big warning signal here and failing to connect the dots. Ohio Governor John Kasich said that people should be held accountable for that. What should happen in your estimation if the FBI is told at its headquarters that there is a credible threat against a school in Florida and never passes that information along to the local field office?
Well, somebody should be suspended or lose their jobs potentially.
Should that be the FBI director?
Oh, I don't know that it necessarily has to be the FBI director, but certainly the people who were fielded that information failed to pass it on, as was part of FBI protocol. They did not follow FBI protocol. There should be consequences for that. Look, I think the FBI could actually undertake a broader investigation about the cases that I mentioned and others, why they're not able to connect the dots, why they're not able, when they have people who have all these red flags and warning signs. Omar Mati was on a terrorist watch list for 2 years. They interviewed him and they closed the case, took him off there, and he managed to commit the crime. So the FBI can do a lot of internal investigation and perhaps come up with some ways of doing things better in the future to try and prevent these things from happening, because they keep happening.